Hi there! Emily Midget here with you today, sharing my latest installment of Exploring with Emily. This month, I'm focusing on creating a monochromatic look with just some colored cardstock and 2 different coloring mediums. I honestly felt like I was cheating a bit with this video. Using the colored cardstock as your saturated color base simplifies the coloring process tremendously. I used 2 different mediums to add shading to the Mondo Chrysanthemum and Mondo Amaryllis, Copic markers, and Polychromos pencils. Let's get started with the details. I began by heat embossing the main bloom from Mondo Chrysanthemum using white satin pearl embossing powder onto some plum cardstock from Hero Arts. When coloring on colored cardstock, I like to try to find 3 different shades of the same color, a dark, medium, and a shade that is almost identical to the cardstock. The dark and medium shades will add the depth and shadows, while the lightest shade that is closest to the cardstock helps to create a more seamless blend from the dark color to the lighter cardstock. After adding color with the 3 gradient shades of Copic marker, I also like to use my colorless blender to help further blend the color out onto the colored cardstock and reduce any harsh lines. For this chrysanthemum, I focus my shading on the interior of the petals, leaving the entirety of the upper cupped portion of the petal untouched, so that it is the lightest color. Because this image has quite a lot of detail, leaving the tops of those petals untouched helps to cut down on my coloring time. Once I had finished coloring the entirety of the flower, I die cut the Pretty Frames 2 cover plate die from Pink Fresh Studio from some more plum cardstock. I want to make this card as monochromatic as possible, adding only different variations of the same color. I adhered the frame to an A2 panel of the same plum cardstock using foam adhesive, then added a sentiment from the new Totally Random Sayings 2 sentiment set from Essentials by Ellen, which I had heat embossed on a rectangle of pebble cardstock using VersaFine Onyx Black and some more white satin pearl embossing powder, creating a pretty pearlescent charcoal effect. The final touch was to add a few mirrored silver pearls from Studio Katya. For my second project, I used the same basic monochromatic concept, this time using Polychromos pencils. I employed the same idea that I showed in my white amaryllis video from a couple of months ago, blending around a masked image and adding some simple shading, which helps to make that image more vibrant. I'm going to use a similar shading trio as I used for the first project, a dark, medium, and lighter shade that is identical to the shade of cardstock that I'm using. I began with a panel of cherry cardstock from Hero Arts, which I masked around the exterior inch using masking tape. Once I had masked around the edges, I placed the Mondo Amaryllis stamp set in the bottom corner of the open area, then stamped it using my MISTI and heat embossed it with more white satin pearl embossing powder. I also created a mask of the stamped flower image using a Post-it note and fussy cut it. Once I had applied the fussy cut mask to the image, I used a life-changing blending brush from Picket Fence Studios to blend some raspberry jam ink from Hero Arts on the open area of the cherry panel. The contrast of this deep reddish pink ink will help to further emphasize the shading details later. I removed all of the masks to reveal a rectangle of deep red and an embossed floral corner. I then used the 3 shades of red Polychromos pencil, concentrating the darkest shade closer to the center of the flower, pulling it out with the medium shade, then blending the two into the red of the cardstock with the lightest red pencil. The deep red of the cardstock does most of the heavy shading work for you. It helps to really work that lightest red shade into your cardstock, which creates a seamless blend from your darkest pencil shading to the saturated cardstock color. Once I had finished adding shading to the image, I die cut a large scripty Merry Christmas die from the Hero Arts from some pebble cardstock. The pale gray cardstock provides a lovely contrast to the deep red. I trimmed up the pencil panel down a bit and mounted it on a piece of matte silver foil cardstock, finally adding the sentiment die cut. Well, that's all for me today. I hope you will try adding some shading to your colored cardstock. It really is a quick and easy way to add some great details to your project without having to make a huge time investment coloring your images. If you liked this video, please give us a thumbs up, and for more information on the techniques and products used for today's projects, head over to the Ellen Hudson blog. Thanks so much for stopping by today, and have a marvelous day.